Skip it up and that up. So this is a response video to Cinemablend's article called 5 Major Gaming Problems We Didn't Have to Deal With as Kids. And this article nails it on the head, man. I strongly suggest you read it. It is an opinion piece, but the reason I want to talk about it is a few days before they made this article, it was funny. I was thinking like, damn, so much bullshit that goes on in the gaming industry now, I never had to deal with when I was like 10, 15 years old. And it sucks in a lot of ways how much the gaming industry has changed, and not for the better. So let's talk about the 5 different things they discussed. And the first one, which is a huge one, which is DRM, Digital Rights Management. Now, when I was a kid, okay, or even a teenager, or even until, Jesus Christ, until the PlayStation 2 and the original Xbox days, you didn't really deal with DRM at all. As a matter of fact, before the PS2 and the original Xbox, you didn't deal with DRM at all. You went out, you heard about a game, you either saw a commercial for it, you heard about it in a magazine, you went to pick it up, you put it in your system, and you didn't have to worry about logging in to games for Windows Live, or to Steam, or to EA servers, or so on and so forth. You just put the game in your system, whether it be a cartridge or a disc, and you fucking played it. But now with games like Diablo 3, which is always online, with the SimCity, the reboot, which was always online, which basically is what indirectly killed Maxis, and the new Need for Speed coming out, which is going to require you to be online, it just makes things into a goddamn headache, man. And look at all the headache that was caused for games for Windows Live, where there's certain games that you can't get into anymore, and developers had to basically rebuild the game to code out games for Windows Live so people could just play it on Steam. It's just another headache that it was something that wasn't even thought of back in like the SNES days and the PlayStation 1 days and even the PlayStation 2 days. And now it's like you don't own games that you purchase anymore. It's like you're paying $60 for the privilege to play it, which any of the developers and publishers could take away from you at any time. And that just kills what gaming is about. And if you're a collector, it hurts doubly as much, because it makes it tough to collect games now. Because in the future, okay, you'll have the disc and you'll have the box, but if that game depended on always online DRM, it's going to be a coaster. That's it. So that's really depressing, and I hate DRM with a passion. I tolerate it with Steam, especially because Steam is very easy to use, and they simplified the DRM, but any way you slice it, Steam, Valve's digital distribution system, is also DRM. And in the end, who knows? Yes, I understand Valve's whole thing. Like, oh yeah, if we go under, you could download all the games and you could burn them onto disks or save them on your hard drive. But who knows really what will happen if, say, Steam implodes? Maybe the thousands of dollars, which is literally what I spent on PC games, may go to shit. Who knows? DRM, can't stand it. Moving on. Now, DLC to me is interesting because it is exploited to no end right now, and developers and publishers use it to milk the consumer dry. But I remember with Grand Theft Auto 4 is the first time I experienced DLC, and they came out with those 2 big expansions, the Ballad of Gay Tony and the Lost and the Damned. At least those are the 2 that are coming to my head right now. I remember thinking, wow, DLC is awesome. It's a way to expand the game after you're done with the original campaign, or you played the multiplayer to death. This is a way to give games more shelf life. But then publishers saw cha-ching, they saw what Rockstar did with their 2 expansions, and they're like, wow, holy shit, we can milk the consumer dry. And now it's turned into, before the game is even released, now they're offering you DLC. Oh, we'll cut off 20%, and DLC, instead of being $50, will be $30, and you'll get all these different fucking costumes. Or the best is, some of the DLC is just stupid fucking outfits. Or like I said, there's on-disc DLC where it's already on. Capcom has done this, where the code is already on the disc, and their corny, lame-ass, weak sauce defense is, oh, well, we didn't finish it yet. We just put some of the code on there, so when we polish it, then we'll make you pay for it. DLC has turned into such a shit show, man, and has made corporations and developers and publishers in this industry very greedy. And going back to when I was a kid again, yes, you would see games hyped in magazines or on TV shows, or there would be commercials for them, but there was no DLC. I understand the technology wasn't capable of it, but you bought the game for 50, 60. Actually, games were even more expensive technically back then if you include inflation. You spent a lot on the game, but you got a full, complete product, and that's it. That's all the developers did, was ask you to purchase that game. Nothing more. But I understand games are a lot more expensive now. I understand developers need to get more money for the games they develop, because these games could cost hundreds of millions of dollars to develop. But at the same time, you have to think about the way you approach DLC. I'm talking to the developers and publishers. Don't make it seem like, hey, the game's not even released yet. It's already, like, Batman Arkham Knight is already probably like a 30-hour game in and of itself, but they're already trying to sell you DLC. Buy our DLC season pass. We'll give you a discount on it now so you could get all the DLC. Buy it so you could spend close to $100 on a game. This shit never happened in the past. I understand the industry has evolved and it needs more money to survive. I'm talking about the gaming industry, but it feels like you're exploiting the consumer, and it needs to change, because eventually the consumer is going to say, fuck you. I'm not spending money on your bullshit product. Major gaming problem number 3 is microtransactions, and holy shit, I cannot stand them with a passion. I'm going to give 2 examples right now. Dead Trigger 2. For Android devices is on iOS. You could actually play it on the NVIDIA Shield, which I just reviewed. And I love that game. All right. Dead Trigger 2, I loved it. It was a fun game. It was one of the best shooters for mobile devices or portable devices I think I personally played. But once you got into the game more, then they started milking you more. Oh, you want to play the next level? Well, if you want to play it, you can unlock it now for XYZ amount of dollars, or you got to wait for 20 minutes. Oh, you want to craft a new weapon? Well, it may take 24 hours to craft that weapon, but if you give gold coins, you can get it crafted right now. Oh, you don't have gold coins? Well, guess what? You're going to have to go buy some gold coins with real money. And they just kept milking you, and it got worse and worse the further you got into the game. And it was like, you know what? Fuck Dead Trigger 2. I'm done. I'm done with this shit. And I just got sick of the whole feeling like the developer of Dead Trigger 2 constantly had their hands in my pockets, and I just gave up on the game. Another game that had microtransactions, which they actually got rid of them, which was laughable and embarrassing, was Rise: Son of Rome. When it originally launched on the 360, guess what? It had microtransactions, and people got pissed off, and eventually Crytek and Microsoft got rid of them. But in the beginning, yeah, Rise: Son of Rome, they had microtransactions for different pieces of shit in the game. It's unreal. And again, going back to when you were a kid, you bought a fucking game and the game had all the features in it. I understand it wasn't the industry was much smaller and games are much less complex and companies need to find new ways to make money, but making the consumer feel like they're constantly having dollars being pulled out of their wallets for games like Rise: Son of Rome, especially. I know I'm kind of going on a rant and a tangent here. Rise: Son of Rome, you already spent money on that game. You spent the $60 initially when it first came out. Then they dared to try have microtransactions in it too. That blew my mind. At least with Dead Trigger 2, it was a quote-unquote freemium game, even though it still pissed me off with how friggin' chintzy they got, and they really tried to, milk the whole microtransaction thing as you got deeper in the game. But at least you could download the game. All right, I'm talking about Dead Trigger 2, and play it. With Rise: Son of Rome, they had microtransactions after they made you spend $60 on the game, which is highway robbery. And this is something we never had to deal with back in the 90s. It's unacceptable, and I despise microtransactions, and I hope that the gaming industry finds a way to stop using microtransactions of a way of supporting their companies. Gaming industry problem number 4 that I didn't have to deal with as a kid: big ass patches. Oh God. Between updates for the consoles, whether it be software updates just for the consoles themselves, game updates, more patches, more game updates, more system updates, it drives me up a fucking wall. There's so many updates it's worse than it is on gaming PCs. I never thought that consoles would have more updates than gaming PCs. That was like the big thing with me, especially with 7th gen. Yeah, okay, I kind of prefer gaming on a PC. I like the features and the options that gaming on a PC does, but I love consoles still because of the fact that they're just easier to use. There's less updates, at least with the first part of the 7th generation. And on top of it, there's physical media. So you actually go to a store, buy a game, whereas with PC, it's pretty much all but dead. It's very few and far between. You could actually get a physical copy of a PC game, which is pointless because most of the time they have Steam keys on them and you just have to install it and it still becomes part of your Steam library. But man, every time you put in a PS4 game, there's a multi-gigabyte update. Halo the Master Chief Collection had a huge update. Every time you put in a game, or even when you just turn on your system, you're dealing with big ass updates. And especially if a game is new, there's usually a huge multi-10 gigabyte update waiting for you, and if the servers are busy, it'll take you forever to download that update. So if you're excited to play a game, guess what? You still may be waiting a couple hours to download that update before you can actually play the game, at least in its entirety. And the thing that bothers me too about these multi-gigabyte updates, I understand that once in a while it has to happen, and games are much more complex than they were when I was a kid. But the biggest issue is that it happens all the time. And you know why it happens all the time? Why every single time you get a new fucking game, there's like a 10 gigabyte update or at least a multi-gigabyte update waiting for you? Is because the games are rushed out because the publishers want to make the quarter. Okay, they want to appease their investors. So even if the game desperately needs like another 6 months of development, nope, you ain't doing it. You're getting that game out for Christmas and then you'll patch that motherfucker later. And it happens all the time. And they know because, hey, listen, I'm just as guilty as you guys. We just lap up the games, okay? Even knowing that they're probably going to be broken pieces of shit when we get them, they know that we'll deal with it. So they do it, they rush it out, they make sure they make their quarter, they make sure that their numbers look good, and that's all they care about. They appease the investors, they make their money, and they'll release a broken product. It's the only industry that it's tolerated to the degree that it is. Could you, like I said before, could you imagine if like the automotive industry did this? Oh yeah, there's this huge issue with the brakes, but we'll just patch it in later. We'll just, do a day one patch and we'll just update the firmware so the ABS system works better. Oops, sorry about that. I mean, I understand. I mean, actually, sadly, it still kind of happens in the automotive industry from time to time. And I understand, no one's going to die from a buggy big game being released, unlike a car. There's a buggy car with a bad ABS system where the computer's glitched up. Someone could die. I understand there's a difference, but it shouldn't be accepted anyway, though. And we do. And I'm just as guilty as everyone else. It shouldn't be tolerated, and it's something that should be looked down upon in the industry. It really should. Back in the day, again, I'm going to look back to when I was a kid. Yes, games were much less complex, but you got a game, and the developers only had one chance. Even when games got more complex, so like the PS1 and PS2 era, they had to make those games work. Yes, games still got released with bugs, but they had to make sure they were done right and at least almost fully functional. Because once that game was downloaded to a cartridge or burnt onto a CD or DVD to go into a store, you didn't have the luxury of patches and updates to fix them. If they were released broken, guess what? You were the developer that was known for releasing a broken game. And that's something that is not a badge of honor you wanted. So now it's used as a crutch. Game companies want to get the games out quick to make their money, and they'll fix them later. It's bullshit, and the feature that should be there to help developers is abused because they just want to make more money. And last but not least, issue number 5 in the current gaming industry, an issue that I never had to deal with as a kid, is motherfucking pre-orders. I can't stand them. They're thrown in your face all the time. You see TV commercials from GameStop. Oh, if you pre-order the newest Assassin's Creed, we'll give you assless chaps just like Altair wears. I don't want your assless chaps. And when you go into a GameStop, I understand it's their job, and I never get mad at them. They literally beg you to get pre-orders. Oh, is there anything upcoming that you're looking for? No, man, I'm good. Are you sure? We have this game coming out, this game coming out, this other game's coming out, this game's coming out for the Wii U, this game's coming out for the PS4, the new Batman's coming out. I think you should pre-order that one so it's not sold out. You should get the special edition. I don't want your fucking special edition. I just want to buy the regular fucking game when it comes in the store, or just download it from Steam. Even, you know what, Steam does the same thing too, man. You go on there, new game's coming out. Oh, if you buy the game now, we'll get you the digital deluxe version for 20% off. Oh my god, you should be so hard for this right now. And I'm not. I just want to buy the game. I don't want any of the, especially with the console games, I don't want to get the super duper collectible edition that has little figurines and shit. I don't care about them. They're going to get lost anyway, and they're not collector's items if 10 million other fucking people have them. I don't want your pre-order shit. I just want the game, but it's another way that they have to make money, so they do it and they force feed it to you. Back in the day, back in the 90s and even the early 2000s and the 80s, when you went to go get a game, you just got the game. You gave the dude behind the counter the money, you took the game home, and you put the cartridge or the CD or the DVD in your goddamn console, and you didn't have to worry about pre-orders. You just got the game on the day it was released. No more, no less. But now, pre-orders, it's like such a big thing in the industry, and you know what? Most people that I talk to about pre-orders, they're fucking annoyed by them and they don't want them. But obviously, it's making money, so the pre-order thing isn't going anywhere anytime soon, but holy shit, I can't stand it. Look, to many of you, especially the younger guys, I probably sound like a grandpa sitting in a rocking chair saying, "Back in my day!" But that's not what I'm trying to get at. Look, I don't want it to go back to the 90s when we had 16-bit consoles with 4 megahertz or 8 megahertz processors and we had everything on cartridges. Yes, I have a ton of nostalgia, but I'm glad the industry has evolved and moved on from that. I love the much more detailed, more engrossing games. It puts you in a different world. That's why I love Dying Light. I literally feel like I'm in Haran when I play Dying Light. But at the same time, you gotta, not all change is good. And there's been a lot of bad change in the industry. And when I saw this Cinemablend article, and when it was so in sync with what I was thinking just a few days before, I had to talk about it. Change is good in general, but not all change is good. And when bad things happen, they need to be called out. I don't want to see the industry go belly up because of shady business practices that piss the consumer off and make them give up on gaming. This is Rich of Review Tech USA signing out. Have a good one.